when we first hear the word clutter, we think stuff. We think of that hoarder stuff. We think about people who can't throw out their garbage and their newspapers for some strange reason. Well, because hoarding disorder is very different than I have issues with clutter. And I've encountered both. Clutter is just the stuff that gets in the way of us being able to do the things that are in line with our values and our goals.
Welcome to Journeys Through Change, a podcast that inspires women to let go of the fear and say yes to possibility. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, creator, and empowerment coach who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders ride the waves of change with ease and grace. I now work with women to step into change and unleash the power they have to create a life they love. Whether you're contemplating a change in your career, relationship, health, lifestyle, or anything in between, nothing's off the table. I'll be offering up simple insights to help you manage the ups and downs of change and sharing interviews with successful women who took a leap of faith to create the life they knew they were meant to live, sharing their wisdom, advice, and all the juicy lessons they learned along the way. So get cozy in your favorite comfy chair and let's get started. Synchronicity in life often unfolds in retrospect as you see the path you've traveled has led you to where you are now, and things all seem to fall into place. Melanie Liss Cohen grew up as a competitive gymnast who trained intensively, spending 20 to 30 hours a week in the gym. Once she stepped away from the demanding schedule, she began to experience weight gain, which continued throughout college. As her career began in retail management, the long hours in malls and easy access to unhealthy food choices contributed to further weight gain. During her pregnancies, it continued as she reached over 200 pounds by the time she turned 30. Determined to change her path, Melanie joined Weight Watchers, lost 65 pounds, and became a weight loss coach, spending 20 years helping others reach their health and wellness goals. After a decision to work closely with an organizational coach, she began to recognize the power of letting go of the clutter in all areas of our lives, including weight. From there, her new journey began. In 2022, she took a bold step and founded her own business, Thoughtfully Coaching, where she now helps others let go of the mental and physical weight getting in the way of allowing them to live full and healthy lives. Melanie, it's so great to have you with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It feels so good to hear all the good things you have to say.
It's all you. It's all you. So Melanie, maybe to get started, the best way to jump in here would be just give us a little bit, maybe a background. I know we went over it briefly, but maybe you can give us a little bit more context to kind of the beginning of your story.
Absolutely. I started my gymnastics career because I loved watching it on TV. And I was too little to know anything about the ramifications of what a competitive gymnast will go through. So as I reached my teen years, I started to get pretty tough verbal abuse, both about the scale and about performance. You're not working hard enough. What's wrong with you? Like negative language. But there are a lot of different bodies for gymnasts. And I was intrigued by Olga Korbut and Nadia Comaneci in the 70s. And gymnasts were lean and dancer-like. And as the 80s came around and we were introduced to Mary Lou Retton and now Simone Biles, we're seeing gymnasts who are just powerhouses, and it's all about strength and agility. I love Simone Biles. She's not a great dancer. I'm going to put it out there. I know she won Dancing with the Stars, but at the end of the day, we watch her do gymnastics because she can fly through the air and fly while twisting and flipping in all these different directions. And I was built like that, taller than Simone. And as a result, I was told that I had thunder thighs when in fact I just had really strong legs. And telling someone they have thunder thighs, teenage girl, not okay. Really not okay. But when you add on top of that, you're not working hard enough, there's something wrong with you. And then words like piggy and fatty and chubby, and it did not set me up for success. Isn't that crazy? Coaching through negativity didn't work for me. Fast forward to choosing to stop this sport that I was passionate about and loved before I had achieved all of my dreams, which included the Olympics. I know not everybody makes it there. So that other dream of mine was college scholarships and continuing gymnastics into my later years. Again, because in the 80s an 18 to 22-year-old gymnast was considered old. And now we see them competing much longer in their careers. So I quit gymnastics and went off to college, and I gained weight after quitting because not training 20 to 30 hours a week. I discovered later that I was an emotional eater. I thought that I was just a binger or a bad person as a result of that in my teen years. And part of my life was like consistently gaining weight, after training, going to college, the typical, 10 to 15 pound weight gain. But I did that in my sophomore year also. And then after getting married and having my kids, and really the commonality in my life was continuing to gain. And like you said in your open, I hit 30 and 200 pounds. I swear it happened on the same day. And I was excited about the 30 milestone. I was like, oh, what are my 30s going to bring? But I hit 200 and I was like, well, I don't want my 30s to bring 210, 220, 240, 280 and on. So I committed to living a healthier life physically and mentally. And like you said, I lost a ton of weight. I became a weight loss coach. It was a beautiful thing. I really feel like it's an honor to be a part of someone's weight loss journey because it's intense and it's emotional. And when I was at my highest weight, I was ashamed and embarrassed by it and didn't want to talk about it. So to hold the hands of thousands of people during that 20 years felt like an honor, really. But when it was time to leave was the time that I was discovering a whole lot of other things. One was that I just wanted to dive deeper. I worked in an environment where it wasn't just calories in, calories out. There was discussion of mindset, but I never felt like the discussion of mindset dug deep enough.
Just as far as your experience at Weight Watchers, when I think about the weigh-ins and all that, and that's like Weight Watchers maybe of years past that I can remember, do you get that sense, like in any coach, it doesn't matter if you're Weight Watchers or not, but I'm just saying, I'm using that as an example. And we'll talk about this obviously because of what you do now, but there is that mindset component that I feel like it's evolved more now
Yes.
within
Yes.
organizations like that. Okay, because I was just going to say, and I know you've been there for a period of time, but it's like people started to kind of catch on that, okay, this is not because you have people that are losing weight that are going through a whole bunch of ups and downs emotionally because of that, even. So even when you're on the other side of it. So anyway, I wanted to point that out because when you were there, I'm curious how that evolved.
You were absolutely right. And I feel like I was there during those really great years of growth and development. But I still feel like, first of all, not everybody was ready to dig deeply like that because it necessitates like admitting things to ourselves. So there were a lot of people who were there because they wanted a food plan and they wanted to be told what to do and how to go about it. And in my journey as a coach, I learned what I wanted in the meeting room and I still went as often as I could, which wasn't often enough. But I wanted the room to dig deeper into how I was feeling and why and how to shift my mindset. And so while I'm really excited to have been there during that part, I wanted to walk away. And someone just used this concept with me yesterday that it's mindset first modalities. And if I am mindset first, maybe it means I never even talk about dieting with a client. Like, and my hope is that we're not talking about fruits and vegetables and exercise and how many points or macros are in those things, but being able to do the things that we each need to do as an individual more willingly, capably, with greater confidence because we're mindset focused, not calories in, calories out focused, or points in, points out, macros in, out, whichever the method is. I still feel very strongly that people who track what they eat are more successful with weight loss and weight maintenance. The question is, what does tracking mean to you? And for so many people, if what we're trying to do is gain clarity in what we're doing, all we need is a little journal or a notes section on our phone and just simply write down the names of the foods we're eating. Not I had a cup of this and a tablespoon of that, but rather these are the foods that I chose to fuel my body at breakfast. These are the foods that I chose to fuel my body at lunch. These are the indulgences I had at dinner because indulgences are important. And so if I take that approach, I am naturally going to eat less. I am naturally going to make better food choices. It doesn't mean like a flip is switched in our body. Well, from now on, I'll always start with a salad, but rather I'm going to lean into those behaviors more often.
Well, and the one thing that I'm a big proponent of is that kind of it's self-managed wellness that comes into play where when you track what's going on and then you also look at your energy level because of it. So how did I feel yesterday? I felt, oh my gosh, I felt so low. I had no energy yesterday. What did I eat? So you start to make those correlations too, which becomes a whole different set of data that you can now play with.
Exactly, exactly. And then to step backwards, like as many steps as I always like to say that we need to go for the lowest common denominator, and that is, well, I made great food choices. What led to the great food choices? A certain thinking. Okay, but what led to that certain thinking? Like, let me keep making the steps back until I really understand the very root of the decisions I'm making, whether the decisions feel good or feel badly. And then that way we're forced, one, to think, like to really dive deeply into the thinking, but it also helps us see the roots. And that means we can catch ourselves more easily at those moments where we might lean into a choice that are not in line with our goals and our values, and also help create the building blocks that we need to get to the really complex goals or complex concepts on the journey. So I just like the idea that we are forcing the thinking as opposed to, well, if I just count the calories, then I don't have to worry about all the other stuff. Well, wait a minute. How many people am I working with who have tried every diet under the sun? And I did before Weight Watchers too, like cabbage soup and no sugar, low fat, no fat, like all of those things. And none of those things helped me. I needed one to be directed with through mindset, but I also knew that I needed to be in a group of people who were like minded with similar goals. And those goals obviously were centered around weight loss. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been at a weight loss company. But the question really was, but why do I want to lose the weight? Like, what am I going to get out of it? What do I get to feel, do, or experience differently by losing the weight? And one of those things is, a massive shift in mindset.
That's so interesting that you say that too, because when you think about like we've all been, right? We've all been through diets in our lives, throughout our lives. If you're a woman, you've been through diets in your lives. Like that's just
Yes.
the way it goes. And when you think about that component, what you just said is, how do I want to feel? Versus just the very tactical, I just need to lose weight. And I can think in my high school years, it was like, I want to lose weight because I don't want people to make fun of me, or I don't want, like, you have different ideas and reasons. And then as you get older and then you start to grab more onto the health aspects of it, like, no, I actually want to be mobile and active and all those kinds of things. It's like, it just takes on a different life.
You also just nailed it because you said, I want to be mobile and I want to be active. And for so many people, if you said, so why do you want to lose weight? They would say to get healthy. But that's so vague. And healthy to you is going to be different than healthy to me and 1,000 other people. So to be able to more clearly define, I want to be mobile. When I think about losing weight and maintain it, this isn't a short term fix, first of all. And my program will never be a quick fix. If someone's looking for a quick fix, they're probably looking at the wrong program with me. But it's also not about achieving the goal, it's about maintaining it for a lifetime. And so, what I need from my weight management journey at 54 is going to be different than what I need it to be at 78. And I have two parents, and one of them is very, very healthy, very active, very mobile, and the other isn't. And I know who I want to be more like. I mean, like, there are other reasons why I wouldn't want to be like this person. But what I do know is when I talk about the level of activity that my father does and the kind of activity he does, people go, wait a minute, did you say your father's 78 years old and he roller skates around the park every day? I'm like, that's my dad.
I love that.
And the other thing that he does is in the afternoon, if work is stressing him out because he still works, he knows that the stress response should be get in the car, drive to the park, roller skate. and then come home, as opposed to, I don't know, in my past, food was going to fix the stress. No, it didn't. And my dad did not get to where he is without struggle. My father was a crack addict. He's been clean now for over 30 years, but we know what the stress response was with him. And his father was a gambler. It may not be a stress response, it's just a response to an emotion that's uncomfortable. And what are we looking for but a way to manage our feelings? And I could manage my feelings with smoking, drugs, alcohol, over shopping, gambling, like all the things. And so, having seen my father, my grandfather, I don't want to say I'm afraid of gambling, but I am most certainly aware of maybe not buying another lottery ticket. Or when you do go to Vegas, play with $20. When the $20 is done, you're done. Now go to a show, go for a walk, have fun in other ways. And interestingly enough, I lost over 60 pounds. I went down like 6 dress sizes. I had to shop because I had to replace my clothing. But I did see myself starting to lean into, well, now that shopping is fun, there's this high when I'm going out shopping that feels really great. And the only time we start to feel down is like the bank account going down, and leaning into the shopping as a way to make yourself feel better, as opposed to like, I simply need to replace everything. And it was exciting for another reason. And it was, I was finally wearing clothing that I loved. Like, I was buying something because I liked the print or the style, not because it fit. Because it fit was a long time lifestyle. But anyway, I mean, the whole point is that we are looking for ways to manage uncomfortable feelings which exist in our day every day. There's no way to avoid highs and lows. The question is, what's my response to that? And if I'm choosing shopping, it's the same negative and unwanted behavior as stress eating or drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, gambling, whatever those things are. So being able to find other things that make us feel good, that don't make us feel badly in the end, whether that's through exercise, or like to say, we don't have to walk away from food altogether. If we can wrap our brains around cooking a really healthy meal, or making a pretty salad with all the colors, those are ways to utilize food in a more helpful way, I suppose.
I love how you transitioned from what you were doing in terms of weight loss coaching to now what you do. And walk us through that a little bit, because it's so interesting to me how you got there.
So my parents both also have issues with clutter. I don't know what I called it before. I just was like uncomfortable and overwhelmed when I was in either of their homes. And one of their homes we hadn't been in for many, many, many years because the clutter issue had gotten so bad. But when I decided to start my own business, I said, why am I starting a business in my 50s? I don't know what it means to be an entrepreneur, but I just knew that I wanted to help people and I wanted to help them in my way. And so I asked a dear friend of mine of over 40 years, could I apprentice with you? I just want to see a woman in business in action. And this is one of my favorite people on the planet. And so she said, of course. And she owns a personal organizing business, or she really likes to lean into the concept of inventory management. She'll come to your home when you're about to move and will pack everything and move it and unpack everything. So you literally don't have to do anything other than maybe walk through the space and say, we're keeping that couch, we're keeping that piece of artwork, but we're going to let that bookshelf go, or whatever. And she's just about making people's lives easier. And she invited me to join her on a move. I didn't go to the beginning part, which was on the West Coast. The end part was on the East Coast, and she brought me in. And this was someone who was moving from something like ridiculous, like a 5,000 square foot house, to like a 2,300 square foot apartment, which, as a New Yorker, 2,300 square feet is huge. But it is also half the size of where they were coming from. And there hadn't been quite enough decluttering done on the first end of the trip. And I'm sitting in the kitchen with boxes of spices, and I'm sorting them so I can put them away. I'm alphabetizing them. And there was literally 4 or 5 jars of everything. And it's one thing if it's like different versions of garlic or it's different versions of a lemon based, zest. It's completely different when there's 5 jars of sesame seeds and 5 jars of marjoram. Now, I use sesame seeds regularly, but 5 jars of marjoram, and I was sitting there and I was remembering a very brief conversation in a Weight Watchers meeting about the relationship between weight and clutter. And it was like my head was exploding. And it was in that moment that I said, you know what, I want to research this a little more. And I found every journal article, every podcast episode, every documentary that was created that had to do with both the relationship between weight and clutter, or just clutter, and overall physical and mental health. And that's when I
Wow.
decided to build the Design Your Healthy Life strategy program. So I now help people lose weight and get healthy, manage their weight by removing the physical and, most importantly, the mental clutter in their lives.
Which I love because I think that there's such an alignment there. Do you have any experiences with people, or have you had any instances where that light bulb goes off with them? I mean, and it's not to say that you're not always drawing the link between weight loss and clutter. It could be clutter and unhappiness, or, I mean, it could be a bunch of different things. But are you finding that they're starting to click into what that is all about, how it's all inner kind of.
So it's interesting because the first clients that I took on were people who already knew me. They had known me from my previous life as a weight loss coach, and they were looking for something more, and they were looking for something one-on-one. And how many people said, I don't have clutter. I don't have clutter. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have clutter. And as the conversations went on, you could see the poof. And I'll never forget the client who said to me, I think I have financial clutter. And so we dug a little deeper, and her financial clutter was, I am over shopping. This is the way that I manage my feelings. And I don't need all the things I'm buying. And while I'm not destitute and I'm not broke, it's certainly affecting my long term financial health in a way that I want to shift. That was a big discovery for me, too, because I realized that I had a lot of financial clutter, and a lot of it came from how I was raised and how money was approached. Or, I mean, my father was selling drugs on the side. I'm not so sure that he was really good at it. I'm sorry, that maybe didn't come out right. Like, he wasn't making a ton of money in dealing. So I think it was more like it made him the big guy. Like his friends came to him because he was the one with the stuff.
Right, right.
But, at the end of the day, I think when we first hear the word clutter, we think stuff. We think of that hoarder's stuff. We think about people who like can't throw out their garbage in their newspapers for some strange reason. Well, because hoarding disorder is very different than I have issues with clutter. And I've encountered both. Clutter is just the stuff that gets in the way of us being able to do the things that are in line with our values and our goals. And your clutter may be like perfectly clean to me, and someone else may look at my clutter and say, oh my God, I wish I can be that organized. And what that means is I have to be really values based when I'm working with clients. And that is, your need for structure is different than my need for structure. And while I may work with people who like dream of being a minimalist, I don't dream of being a minimalist. I just dream of having a day where I wake up in the morning and go to bed at night and stuff didn't get in the way of my being able to be productive or feel good about myself. Look behind me. There's lots of pictures on the wall. There's lots of pictures on the wall, but I love every single one of them. They're not taking away from my ability to live a happy day.
But see, this is what I think is so interesting, because when you say stuff, you can't really see what I'm saying in quotes, or you say stuff, it brings to mind like physical things. But what you're saying is no. I mean, the financial clutter thing really rung a bell with me, because yes, there are so many layers to the way that we view our financial. Everybody has kind of how they were brought up, and you've got all the values
Sure.
that were brought to you from your parents and all the stuff you've worked through as an adult. But when I think of like financial clutter being buying something because you get the high from it, because I mean, there's also this other part that resonates with me of like addictive behavior, having come from that myself too. But I think there's so much that you can unravel.
Right.
it could be one thing for one person and another for another. But when you said stuff, I thought that's so funny because I think of like physical stuff, but what you're talking about is emotional stuff too.
It's everything. It's digital clutter. It's how the emails that have not been deleted or responded to or whatever. You know what I find fascinating? Because like I'm not perfect. I haven't been cured, but my ability to have too many text messages or direct messages, because for some reason I have that one where it's just me and Noelle. Then I have the one that's me and Noelle and Jane. But there's that other one with Noelle and Jane and Judy. But there's the one with Judy. And for some reason, I can't start a new text chain after deleting one, you know?
Right.
And it's not really getting in the way of my living a more balanced life, but it's the things to think about. The clutter of the calendar. How many things are on my to-do list that aren't really important, but they're there because I think they're important for some reason? Or like the saying yes to everything instead of knowing when, you know, it would benefit me if I said no to that. Social media is clutter. The news cycle is clutter. No matter how you felt about the election, that was clutter because it was like so constant and in your face. And so there's a lot to be said for being able to figure out which is your clutter. And it could actually be stuff. But then if it's stuff, what is the stuff that's getting in the way? Maybe a full closet of clothing isn't getting in the way, but all of those things that you saved from your grandmother that you can't get rid of because for some reason she's like embodied in that dish, that crystal, that knife, that painting, that whatever. And I know deep in my heart that neither of my grandmothers want me to feel weighed down by their stuff. They want me to have the things that somehow really connect me with that person. And as a result, I don't have a lot of stuff from either of my grandmothers, which, much to my mother's dismay, and I think my aunt's dismay also. But the ones that I have are the ones where I just like, oh, I love that I have that.
Yeah, there's meaning to it. It's like being selective because when you think about when you were talking about the closet thing, that it's the attachment. There's an attachment to things. I mean, it's so crazy when I think about the depths that you can go in any one of these categories, right? And I would also venture to throw out, and this is, I think we talked about this before, but the opposite of that, which I know I have plenty of clutter, so I'm not going to say that I don't. But on the flip side of it, there is an aversion to clutter that I have that may be problematic. Like you could dip into that too and be like, well, where is that coming from? And why do I want to make sure like I keep things clean? And that's a whole, that's a whole other podcast. But
There are those people who say, oh, when I'm stressed, I just clean. It feels so good. And forgive me, like you will never hear me say that. But now that I've gotten to the point that I'm at, I can say, if I just go in my room and say three things, Melanie, three things, go in there and grab three things that mean nothing to you anymore and get rid of them. It actually makes me feel both mentally and physically lighter. And the whole thing about a weight loss journey is that you want to feel physically lighter. And if that means getting rid of this book, or it means getting rid of those earrings that you haven't worn in a really long time, then that's a way to feel lighter, figuratively and literally. And I'm not sure that I believed that in the beginning because I thought, okay, today's cleanup day, empty the closet out, empty all the drawers, start from scratch, when that's just overwhelming and means that you're going to do nothing. You're going to end up doing nothing, as opposed to, okay, Mel, guess what? Three things. Noel, go to the closet. Four things. That's all. That's all we need to start with, because that will build momentum, and that momentum that's being built will also create more confidence in being able to do more. And that is how people with actual hoarding disorder get to where they are. First of all, there is a link between OCD and hoarding disorder, which for so many people sounds so counterintuitive. But wait a minute, if they have OCD, if they're perfectionists, then their space should be perfect. No, what it means is they think it should be perfect. It should all be done and it needs to be complete. And because there's not enough hours in the day, there's not enough energy in the body to do it all in one fell swoop. So instead, well, I'll wait until I have the perfect time. I'll wait until I have the time. I'll wait until I have the helpers. And wait just leads to clutter, clutter, clutter building up. So if we learn, not just for people with serious hoarding disorder, but for those of us who just feel overwhelmed by our stuff, whether it's physical or mental or digital, that if we just say, okay, today I'm going to unsubscribe from 10 emails. I'm going to delete one screen. I think there's like 50 emails in a screen. I'm going to delete 50 emails. No matter what it is that we're doing, we can find the most ridiculously simple goal, finish it, accomplish it, pat yourself on the back because you did a great job, and now motivated and inspired and confident in the next steps that need to be taken.
I love it. That's giving me a whole new lease on life because I feel like those baby steps are I mean, seriously, because I'm one of those that gets overwhelmed. But even just putting one foot in front of the other in some of these kinds of things it's going to get you there. I want to know, Melanie, because I know that you have a lot going on. And we are, by the way, so everybody knows, we're putting all of Melanie's links in the show notes with some goodies. You have some stuff that you're offering, which is really nice. But so what's next for you? Like what's coming up? Give me a little bit of the lowdown on that.
I mean, what's next up for me is like helping people clean out their stuff, whether it's physical clutter, digital clutter, mental clutter, or physical clutter. Like I could say that the extra weight on my body is actually clutter. It's getting in the way of my jeans feeling good. It's getting in the way of my being able to be mobile and active. Like you said earlier, that stuff's getting in the way. So I want to help everybody do that. And what that means is, while my ideal client, the person who's looking for me to help them, is looking to lose weight, they're not looking to remove the clutter because, like we said before, so many of them don't know they have clutter until it's really, discussed. And so I like to break it down by room. Can I tell you about the kitchen a little bit? Because this is the one that like hits
Yes.
me. One is like, how many pieces of Tupperware, how many coffee mugs that say world's best mom? Like, how many of those things do we really need? How much do we actually have to stock up on? Like, how many jars of tomato sauce or cans of beans do I need? Because the more cluttered the space in the kitchen is, the more overwhelming it is, and the less likely we are to cook and clean. If my counter is full of stuff, I am not pulling out the giant cutting board and all my glass containers and chopping up the fruits and vegetables and putting them in containers and putting them in the fridge so that I can have them. And again, the fridge where, there's 12 bottles of salad dressing and each have like barely an inch of it. But just in case is like that word that gets us in so much trouble in every room in our house, just in case. So my goal is, by helping people on the weight loss journey, is always to tackle the kitchen first, unless you say, my kitchen's fine, I need to work on the other things, because the kitchen is where we both get rid of the clutter that makes us feel good, but it's also the place where we make the food.
Oh, I was just going to say,
Yeah, right.
that's perfect. I mean, that's a perfect place to start. And it's kind of
Absolutely.
like what I learned early on in my coaching days, which was, a lot of times people will tell you what they want, but not necessarily tell you what they need. And so the way that you are able to kind of work with people around the weight issue and then be able to expand out, that's
Yes.
beautiful. And
Thank
the
you.
kitchen is
Thank
where it
you.
all happens.
Or where it doesn't happen, as I pull out my phone and go to the apps or pick up the phone and call the pizza place, Chinese food, whatever. And what I know is, like, none of those things that I just said are bad. For some reason, food gets demonized. Thai food's amazing. I love Indian food, especially the naan that goes with everything. Like, I can keep talking about food. And so I know that there are healthy options there. I know I can choose an unhealthy option and practice better portion control. I can do all those things. But if I'm ordering in on a regular basis because I'm so overwhelmed by the stuff in my kitchen, I am not making those healthy choices. I am not choosing portion control. I'm letting the mess of my kitchen get in my way. So the question is like, so what's next for me? I do both one-on-one coaching, which is all via Zoom, unless you want to bring me into your house to help you. And that really just starts with a conversation of like, what do you want to have happen? What is it that you want your space to do for you? I also have a weekly program, which is amazing. We have like this great group of people who, I think we talked about this earlier, being in a room or a Zoom room with people who are on the same journey that you're on to remove the clutter, whether their clutter is in the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, the bathroom, and all those places impact health and wellness, or whether all of the clutter that exists in our lives is in, between the ears. Like even the person with that perfectly clean home that you can eat off the bathroom floor, not the kitchen floor, you can eat off the bathroom floor, still has some form of mental clutter. We all have either self-limiting beliefs, the things that we tell ourselves that aren't true, the things that we think other people are saying about us when they're not really, because all they're doing is looking in their own mirror. So to be able to get together weekly with these people and discuss all things mindset, whether we're talking about decision making fatigue or emotional eating, which comes up a lot, or all the things that are either going to support us on our journey or hold us back. So that's my favorite part, is getting those people together.
That is wonderful. And I can imagine the conversation. And there's so much people can learn from each other.
Yes, because it's not always what I have to say. Like
Yeah.
being the expert in the room doesn't mean that I'm the best person to listen to. It's like the one who's in the trenches with you right now.
Yes. Melanie, I am so excited to continue to hear how things go with you. It sounds like you are doing God's work.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously. I mean, I believe that because truly it's just one of those things where so many people could benefit from so many different facets of what you offer.
And can we also say what I'm offering for free to all of your
Oh, yes.
listeners? I have a great Kickstart book, How to Get Started on This Journey. And
Nice.
It's a Kickstart book, so it is meant to be simple. I talk about the relationship between weight and clutter, get a little deeper into that, and then talk about strategies for decluttering space, kitchen in particular, because that's always where I think we should begin. And then a whole bunch of stuff about decluttering the mind, how clutter affects the mind, and then simple ways to work on decluttering that space between the ears.
That's amazing. Everybody get on there and grab one. I'm going to go grab it now. I'm excited to learn more about this because I'm intrigued, but now I'm going to be looking at my day a little bit differently.
Oh, I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Yeah.
Melanie, thank you again. It was such a joy to have you with us.
Thank you, Noelle. You're a great host.
That's it for now. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us and leave a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And share it with a friend or on social media to spread the good word, so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun. For more information on the podcast or Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com.